I'm strangely digging this whole Helena Bonham Carter hairdo thing going. Like a messy Victorian.
Excuse me, regal sir. Can I sit there so I can make a video? Hello. Oh, hello. Excuse me. Excuse me.
Greetings.
Welcome back at court.
I apologize in advance for any creaking noises you hear. I just recently got this Edwardian style chair at an antique shop for an absolute steal. I don't think they realized what they had. It's very creaky. Any movement I make is very groany. Let's get to the main point here. Welcome to my first two-part series that really came up spontaneously. In my off-screen time, I spend many hours watching YouTube, a lot of YouTube. One of my favorite channels is Karolina Zabrowska, I think is how you say it. I apologize if I didn't say it correctly. I'm a big fan and I don't want to offend. She made a video not too terribly long ago. The title of the video is "This video is your sign to have an Emma-inspired picnic." Well, Karolina, consider someone inspired. Upon watching that video, I contacted my bestie and told her we needed to have one of these now. I happened to have a pattern that was Regency style, but I also had a pattern for stays, which are not exactly Regency era appropriate. In that time period, there was a piece of wood that went down the center of the stays or corset. The purpose of that piece of wood was to basically break up the band. My pattern does not have that. It is the American Duchess Simplicity pattern. And the Regency dress pattern that I had was also American Duchess. Now I decided to basically combine the two patterns, making the undergarments first and then the gown. This is most assuredly not a tutorial. Definitely do not replicate anything I do.
No one attempt to recreate or reenact any stunt or activity performed on this show.
I'd used a favorite cotton material that I'd had for a long time, which was kind of bittersweet to chop it up, but at the same time using it for the stays, I was guaranteed to like it. Next, I needed to find the interfacing or middle part of the 3 layers to the stays, and I'm not sure if I took it too literally on the pattern, but when it said interfacing, I thought it meant interfacing, and I got a little bit confused as to what I actually needed.
And now for some unsolicited advice.
Now, something I've always done when cutting out patterns is that I always cut them out a size bigger than what I actually am on the pattern, so that if I wanted to make it again and I had changed size, I would have that extra room to be able to expand my wardrobe in. So as you can see in this footage here, I am cutting underneath of the tissue paper because I am cutting at the actual size that the pattern said I was versus what I had cut the tissue paper out at. I used stiff interfacing as the second of 3 layers in the stays to use for my boning channels. I think the most satisfying part of the construction of the stays was putting the boning in. They were just really hardy zip ties that I got at a hardware store. Now my hand was hurting like dickens because you have to cut the zip ties to the length of the channel in the stays. And after about only 3 or 4 clippings on the zip ties, my hand was in agony. Well, it's all put together. Some stitches are not as good as others. Owie. Look, my hand's all red. I must have cut at least. You know what? I lost count after a while.
No, that's good. Good job.
Thank you. The next day, my hand was pretty swollen. It hurt pretty good. Let's see how well this goes. Not as bad as I expected it to. I need a maid. So I've had a little bit of an issue. Actually, first of all, let me say, what do you think of it? I'm so excited, it's so cute. So the issue I'm running across is more of a me problem than a pattern problem. My measurements don't exactly fit concisely and neatly into one size. I'm not too self-conscious to say the biggest problem I have is my biscuits. They don't always fit into the pan. And so I end up finding myself trying to scoop them back into the container where they're supposed to be. I noticed also on the pattern there is quite a bit of space in the lacing, but as you can tell, I don't have quite a bit of space in my lacing. It's pretty well tight. I don't know enough about tailoring or pattern mixing to know how to remedy that situation other than just taking it in as much as I can. Anyway, I just wanted to show you what the progress we've had so far. And now if you'll excuse me, I gotta dig myself out of it. It's the first time I've laced up anything besides my shoes. It's been 20 minutes since my last cup of tea. So as you can see, I decided to take it in. I've had to take it in about 3/4 of an inch on every single panel, which was a little tedious and a little tricky in some places. I need to press this one because I just stitched it. I've pressed all the other ones, which is why it looks a little bit burnt, because interfacing doesn't like an iron, apparently, or at least not mine. But then again, I don't like my iron either because it spits. It's like a mean snake.
An inch by inch out of the grass rose the head and spread hood of Nog, the big black cobra.
And the lesson that we've learned here is this is not my size. We have to go down a few. Even though my measurements say one thing, the size that I actually am is not that. So knowing my measurements wasn't really as useful as Irene Adler makes it out to be.
Shall I tell him?
My measurements are 38, 33, and 40, in case you were curious.
The next day.
Good morning. I am very tired. I have been up till 2 a.m. working on my stays. I just get so into work mode, and next thing I know, I'm like, it's the next day. So here we are. I set the lining in yesterday. Sorry there's no footage of that. As I said, I just kind of went into work mode and stopped paying attention to anything else except for watching Pirates of the Caribbean franchise.
And now for a dramatic reenactment.
Somehow, even though these stays are too big for me, I somehow am short of fabric, and I don't understand how I managed to do that. I'd start to sew and get afraid of the boning and veer away, and then I had to flip it over to the right side of the stays and sew back over the fabric so it doesn't just completely come off. This is what happens when you're a noob and don't know what you're doing. You end up with like 3 stitching lines. I will also be putting in the bias tape. Part of me is wanting to get a beige color because I think it would suit this better, but at the same time the Marie Antoinette in me wants this kind of candy shop compliment happening here.
I like to think it's a candy.
And now I'm gonna go get some tea because I'm about to die if I don't have my tea sometime soon. I was super proud of my sewing machine. I think a lot of people who are just starting out really have a love-hate relationship with their sewing machines, but me and my machine, we have a connection. There were so many times during this project that I got so frustrated and was just at my wit's end. I nearly broke a needle, and my sewing machine would be reaching out to me going, "Wait, don't quit. We're in this together. If we both work hard, we can pull through." It never quit. It just kept on going. After sewing down the top portion of the stays with bias tape, which should have been rather simple considering the lack of sharp angles or, hairpin turns like the tabs have on the bottom portion of the stays, I was over it. I was over it. I was done. I couldn't be bothered. All I can say is that stays are extremely comfortable. They were not restrictive in any way, shape, or form. I really, really love my stays.
Eventually.
It was time to get started on making the shift, which is very important in the longevity of your stays and should have been rather quick and easy to make had it not been some other factors that complicated things.
Did you? No! You did that on purpose.
One such factor being my short attention span. As I was cutting out the fabric to the pattern pieces, I found myself distracted by some very unusual things, which would be to my detriment later.
Inhaling through your nose.
So I was a bit of a dummy-dum. No shocker there. The gussets, I have 4 gussets and 4 sleeves. So that was me not paying attention to what I was doing. Not really actually fully reading the instructions. I became an expert through speed reading and partially ignoring. Onwards, I have never sewed a sleeve, I've never sewed a gusset, and this to me, I don't know, trying to figure this out involves geometry of my brain. I got like a barely passing grade in geometry. This may turn out to be rather interesting. I have a sewing manual. I actually have quite a few, so if I get stuck, I can look at this, or I can also, do what everybody else does, which is YouTube it, because that's simpler than reading, obviously. But you know what? It's easier to watch a video on YouTube than it is to read a book and try to figure things out with my head, which is emptier than my teapot right now, because in the middle of the night, our water went out. So I'm just all kinds of personality today. I'm a real witch without tea. So I'm going through withdrawal symptoms, which involves inability to understand instructions, learning new things, or just in general being a nice person or even socially acceptable. I'm gonna try to sew my way out of my caffeine headache and just struggles in life. So, here we go. Where are my patterns? I did. Oh, shucks. God dang it. I sewed the sleeve too high. Let's stick a pin in it. So that's what those dots were for. Once again, I wasn't reading the pattern right. Because that's what I do. I'm just too full of chaotic energy to notice when I'm missing a step. Oh, no! Oh, good. I did. This is. Oh my God! This is the wrong side. I'm such an idiot. I'm gonna have specks all over the place.
So in the instructions, you are told to sew up the side of the shift to a certain point that makes room for the gusset and the sleeve. This is represented by 2 dots on either side of the wrong side of the fabric. What I had failed to do was A, make those marking dots. 2, I sewed up the side of the shift way too high. And then 3, I put the wrong sleeve on the wrong side. So things were not matching up, were too tight and were puckering. So I had to undo those seams, remark those dots. It was a mess.
Oh, that is so much better. Oh. Note to self, always read the directions carefully. Like a New Year's resolution, I really mean it right now.
And it was at this time that tragedy struck, when the serpent reared its ugly head to inflict its steamy venom.
For serious though, I really did burn my wrist on this iron. I have the evidence right here. What you're seeing now is from like 3 weeks ago. It's not entirely the iron's fault, but it's a serpent of the devil.
And so while nursing my wounds, I just pressed on with attaching the sleeves to the shift. Get it? Press on. Then all there was to do was to hem the skirt, which the instructions recommended doing by hand, and I was okay with that as I needed to practice my hand stitching, and also I was able to watch my family and friends play Smash for entertainment.
I just want to Falcon punch somebody. I can tell. Oh yeah, I finally hit somebody again.
And on that note, my project was done.
I hope you enjoyed the first part of this journey. I have about a week to go or so before the actual picnic takes place, and then I will be able to reveal the gown that made me about have my adult brain succumbed to the nothing. Attacks! I don't really care for long drawn out endings, so I'm simply just gonna say if you enjoyed what you watched, please leave a comment down below and also offer any suggestions you may have in the comment section, because I'm really not that imaginative for videos anyway. And if you would like to become a permanent member of my court, all you have to do is hit subscribe. And I will see you in part 2. Bye!